How long have we had governments the way we know them today? Why do we have them? The governments, I mean. Today we rely so much on the government to do things for us. Should they help us build roads and airports? Should they run buses and airlines? Should they clean up our air and ensure our safety? What is their role? What should they do and not do? Hi, I am Sathya Sankaran and you're tuned into the Uru Labs podcast. Let's try and answer these questions in today's episode of the Explainer series. From hunter-gathering nomads to self-organized communities, Homo sapiens have always had someone who headed the pack and kept them in line. Mostly alpha males who then started to be called kings. They told the people under their controlled area what to do. For a long time in our recorded history, kings and kingdoms is the way we have lived. They would use force and fear to keep people in check. One of the instruments was also reverence. They claimed to have got their power from God and hence had the divine right to rule. A lot of our mythologies associated kings with being godly. All of these things changed during what we call the Enlightenment period. This was a European movement spanning over 2 centuries from the 1600s, where multiple ideas around God, nature, humanity, etc. were being questioned by several thinkers. This led to many new concepts being developed across art, philosophy, and politics. Some of these thinkers have contributed to defining the concept that got us the governments that we have today. And this is why we no longer are ruled actively by kings. Thomas Hobbes, an English philosopher in the early 17th century, was one of the first of these political thinkers. The tiger in Calvin and Hobbes was named after him. His book Leviathan, published in 1651, set the stage for political transformation. He introduced the concept of individual rights and social covenants between individuals. Hobbes believed that it was human nature to be in a constant state of war, where every person was in a permanent state of conflict with every other person for the limited resources available. In this state of nature, everyone has a right to everything, and therefore there can be no security for anyone to enjoy his or her life. He classified people as fundamentally evil, and if left to themselves will loot and plunder each other. Hence they need absolute monarchs to tell them what to do. So while Hobbes took the first steps towards rights and government, he did not really believe that humans had the capacity to govern themselves and was clearly still a monarchist, right? John Locke was an English thinker. His essay concerning human understanding in 1689 outlined a theory of human knowledge, identity, selfhood, etc. that would be hugely influential to the Enlightenment thinkers. He disagreed with Hobbes on the classification as people as fundamentally evil. He said people are born with certain natural rights. He identified 4: life, health, liberty, and possession. These are things people inherently value and want to have for themselves. People only revolt and fight if any of these 4 are violated, and not for anything and everything. For example, if someone threatens your life or health or tries to kill you or maim you, then your right to life or health is under threat. Or when they lock you up and take away your liberty, like slavery or bonded labor, and prevent you from doing what you want to do. Or when what you own is stolen or taken away, then your right to possessions is violated, right? So these are the 4 that he thought are something that people want to have. And Locke said the job of the government is to protect these basic natural rights. He called them natural rights. The second treatises of government that he wrote a year later rejected the divine right of kings. Locke said that societies form governments by mutual, and in later generation tacit, agreement. Thus, when a king loses consent of the governed, a society may remove him. This is where the concept of governments and fundamental rights began to get refined away from monarchy that Hobbes still clung on to. Locke was clear. The job of the government is to protect these rights of life, health, liberty, possession of its citizenry. It is not to rule or control. Montesquieu, a French theorist during the same period as Locke, questioned what happens when the same government that Locke has defined as protecting the basic rights ends up attacking it or infringes on it. Like the government itself does what it does, what you said it shouldn't, what we shouldn't do to each other, infringing on the natural rights that we said. He proposed that there should be separation of powers. He proposed that there will be three wings to the government: a legislative part which makes up the rules that govern the people, an executive part which executes under these rules, and a judicial part which adjudicates when there is a conflict. All these three are a part of the government, but each of them should have balance that keeps each other in check so that one of them doesn't become all powerful and attack the rights of the people. So Montesquieu's work on the separation of powers and the rule of the law had significant impact on the development of liberal political theory and the US Constitution and our structure that we and you and I, everybody face today. We talk about bureaucracy, the political class, and the judiciary. This is the government that came from those times. But here's the more important thing. More than half a century later, in 1762, the Genevan philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote a book called The Social Contract. The social contract helped inspire political reforms and revolutions in Europe, especially in France. He said that the contract between the government and the people is called a social contract. He reiterated Locke's principle that government's job was to protect individual rights of government, and if it does anything other than that, people have a right to back out of that contract and establish a new one with a new government. Even though the word social contract and social covenant was used by both Hobbes and Locke almost a century ago, or a half a century ago, this conception of Rousseau transferred the rights to the people, letting them be in control of governance themselves. But the social contract as a word has one important characteristic. The people collectively give up their rights to this government in case any one of them violates the fundamental rights or natural rights of life, health, liberty, or possession. They empower the government with what is called monopoly over violence or monopoly of violence to protect these rights of every individual, which means the government is empowered to take away my life, health, liberty, or possession if I violate someone else's. This social contract was further enhanced when another French philosopher, Voltaire, said there has to be clear separation between church and state, which means governments and its activities must be separate from any kind of religious practice and focus on preserving the rights of the individual, the natural rights we keep talking about now in this episode, and allow them to govern neutrally. As kingdoms change to countries with borders and governments, the monopoly over violence or social contract extended to owning military to keep the border safe and public good natural resources like land, minerals, biodiversity, etc. Because that was a part of the economic system that came in. We started defining public goods. Who should own public goods? What's the difference between public good and private good? All of these things. So not just individual freedoms, but also collective action problems that began to be administered by the government. And this was an evolution from the economic side of things because all of the other Enlightenment stuff was from the political side of things. And now it blended in saying, so there is value in these goods and it needs to be preserved. You do private goods, you do public goods, you do common goods. Somebody else does club goods. So we started looking at how do we handle all of the assets that the natural world has and who should be in charge. So while we ceded the monopoly over violence to the government, we also said, hey, can you take care of public goods also? Because it belongs to the public. And we started defining collective action. So if you remember, in episode 5, I mentioned one of the ways to solve collective action problems was coercive power of the government. Collective action problem arose when individual self-interested actions, which was protected as a basic right by the government, began to lead to market failure. So you and I have a right to trade goods and services between ourselves. This is also called free market. Don't confuse this with crony capitalism, oligarchies, etc., which has corrupted the whole thing. But free market is the ability to trade goods and services between parties. So when the outcome of a free market is different from a socially optimal outcome, it is called a market failure. So the market failure is not just you cheating me, which is a violation of individual rights, which was already coming from the political side of things, but you also cheating everyone of resources, which is the tragedy of the commons. We talked about this in the previous episode. Hence, the government is allowed to step in here. The only difference is the government will use its coercive power or monopoly over violence it has. The rights you ceded to them to implement the laws of the land. So, what did we learn from all this? Transformation to where we are today from monarchy was long and hard. It took centuries of refining the way we govern ourselves into a collective, well balanced unit instead of some alpha males deciding our fates. This also showed that the social contract is not a right of free passage for the government to be involved in every aspect of our lives. Not having the favorite color of your t-shirt in the shop is not a market failure. The government should not be solving it. Not having an object of your desire at the price you desire is not a market failure. The government should not be solving for it. We defined violation of rights and collective action failures, protection of public good resources, and provisioning of common good resources that benefit everyone in general as the role of the government under the social contract. You ceded some rights for something. They should be laser focused on what those are before shouting for government intervention on everything. So the next time you ask the government to fix something, think again. Is there a problem to public goods or individual rights? No, then look elsewhere. The government is not the one to be solving it. There may be many things the governments are doing today that they don't need to. What are they? Let me know. But this is the clincher. This is the human side of the story. The beings as we are. But we will be birthing a new class of people. Well, they're not people. They're people like machines using artificial superintelligence whenever that comes. ChatGPT is not superintelligence, it's not even general intelligence, but it's going there, it's coming soon. And Sam Altman thinks we need a new social contract.
Still expect that there will be some change required to the social contract, given how powerful we expect this technology to be. I'm not a believer that there won't be any jobs. I think we always find new things to do. But I do think like the whole structure of society itself will, be up for some degree of debate and reconfiguration.
Will the artificial super intelligent beings have rights like how humans have? Will they respect our rights? Do they need a government? If indeed they are intelligent, they may not take away each other's rights, and hence we may not need a government to which they have to cede rights. Will they respect the social contract we have as human beings? What will a rewrite of the social contract for them look like? It's very interesting to understand. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.